Nandita. Yeah. Have you gone through the lesson?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Now, then if you've gone through the lesson, tell me about who's that? Tanvi. I want to see your video on. Name the state which is the largest producer of ragi. Aniket. Largest producer of ragi.
Karnataka.
Yeah, correct. So, what is jhuming, Shrushti? Shrushti, you're on mute.
Zooming is, zooming is another word for the slash and burn agriculture.
Which region? Vaibhavi, you're on mute. Yes. Which region? Darshil? Which region is it known as jhuming?
Assam.
Assam, Manipur.
Northeastern.
The northeastern states, yes. And what about the highest producer? We are a highest producer, certain crop and a consumer. Which crop is that?
Rice.
Rice.
Rice?
Pulses.
Pulses, yes. And what amount do we contribute to the vegetable production in the world?
4%.
4%.
Vegetables, not coffee.
13%.
Yes, Tanvi, it is 13. Coffee is 14%. But which kind of coffee is very famous in India, world famous, that is grown in India?
Arabica.
Okay.
Arabic.
Where do we grow it?
Karnataka, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu.
Kerala.
Baba Budan.
Baba
Budan Hills in Chikmagalur.
Yes. That's the exact location. Now, Aman, tell me, why do we need a good communication and transportation network if we want to develop plantation crops?
Mom, I can't hear you.
Now, can you hear me now? No? Okay, Maurya, tell me. Maurya? Vaibhavi?
Sorry, ma'am. Can you repeat the question?
You couldn't hear the question?
No. There was a...
Why do we need a proper communication system, transport and communication system for the development of plantation crops?
Ma'am, to transport the harvested goods to the market.
Basically, why? Because the plantations are an interface between? It's an interface between what?
Nature and
human.
Industry.
Yes. Industry and the agricultural region or the crop where it is grown. That's why that's very essential. Communication is very essential. Now tell me, why do we grow jute majorly on the floodplains?
Ma'am, because the alluvial soil is replenished every year.
Yes, that's very essential. That's why we usually grow in the Ganga Brahmaputra plains. The maximum amount of rubber is utilized to make what?
Auto tires and tubes.
Auto tires and bicycle tires.
Correct. Now, why do you think jute is being replaced by other fibers?
High cost.
Ma'am, because of its high cost.
Ma'am, expensive.
Because jute is expensive. Nowadays, there is...
So people use plastic instead of jute.
Synthetic fibers.
Nylon.
Now you tell me, because of the various irrigation
They
facilities.
prefer synthetic in fibers instead of food.
Who's that? Aman. Okay. Now tell me, now since we have so many irrigation facilities available, what are the changes in the cropping pattern that has been brought about because of all these facilities? Do you see some change in the cropping? Because we've studied about so many different types of crops, Kanika. So what are the changes do you find because of the change in the cropping pattern because of the irrigation facilities that we have today?
Mom, I can't hear you.
Okay. Shubhangi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Okay. Tell me, what are the changes in the cropping patterns which have come up because of the improved irrigation facilities available today in India?
Ma'am, I do not know.
We've talked about change in, if you remember that if you cannot grow a particular crop because of the irrigation facilities, we have started growing them in certain regions. Certain crops which were always a kharif crop, now is also grown as a rabi crop. Have we not talked about few of those crops?
We have.
So you don't remember them?
Ma'am, maize. I remember the crops.
Correct. We've talked about maize. We've even talked about rice. If you remember, that rice is now even grown in Punjab and Haryana because of the irrigation facilities. If you remember the Green Revolution, which has brought about the canal irrigation to a great extent in parts of Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana, even we have started growing rice. So there's a change in the cropping pattern. Like Aniket talked about maize, which is growing as a rabi crop even. So these are the changes which are brought about because of the irrigation facilities which have developed in our country. Now, I'd like you to tell me, since you've studied so much about cropping and growing of crops, what do you think would change the state of farming in our country? What do you think you should introduce to make it better? Suggestions. What suggestions would you give?
Ma'am, spraying of pesticides and fertilizers from drones or others.
Ma'am, we should start promoting organic farming.
Promoting organic farming for what?
Ma'am, so that
Modern type of farming.
less use of fertilizers, pesticides, because they can cause pollution to the water. And
yeah, but I'm talking, that is a good thing, but then we are asking about enhancing the agricultural production in India. How can we enhance agricultural production in India?
Farmers should be in direct contact with the market instead of an agent.
By using modern farming
reducing
methods.
the middlemen. Yes, Vaibhavi?
By using modern farming methods.
Correct, using modern farming methods.
Like HYV seeds and new
yes.
Tools and
the awareness.
Increasing awareness. Who is going to increase awareness, Sudesh?
The government.
Yes. So the government needs to take some steps, right? What else? Ishan?
Yes, ma'am.
What else should be done so that we can enhance the agricultural production in India?
Ma'am, use HYV seeds and...
That's already been said. You weren't attentive?
Ma'am, I just now joined.
Okay. So that's already been discussed. Some more?
To improve. Ma'am, try to utilize more land.
I couldn't hear you, Ishan. Please repeat.
Utilize more land.
Utilization of more land. Okay.
Or better irrigation facilities.
Better irrigation facilities, better seeds, and government even can provide loans at lower interest. Think on those lines. What else can the government do? They can subsidize things for the farmers.
Yeah.
What else? What else upon the cropping pattern? Like we are seeing that we are growing rice, wheat everywhere because that's a staple crop. So why not move on to growing a crop which will be more suitable to that climatic condition so that we can get a better production? Don't you think that should be
cropping and we can do mixed and double cropping, mixed cropping, double cropping, and intercropping.
Crop rotation.
Yes.
Yeah, crop rotation.
Yes. Yes. So somebody was talking about, we were talking about cash crops. Why we should grow even more cash crops. Though cash crops from region to region will vary, but then which we are earning more profit, maybe we need to direct the farmers towards that direction to diversify the cropping pattern in our country, right? So let's move on to today's lesson about what are the technological and the institutional reforms that have been done by the government in order to enhance the agriculture in our country. I'll share my screen.
They can also give higher incentive in public distribution systems to the farmers.
Yes.
The government.
Correct. So you can even ask the foreign investment into it. That will even open up more of the agricultural sector. It will provide more occupational facilities too, more employment and more production. So this is what we had studied in the last class. So we'll continue with, we'll start with this technological and institutional reforms. We've discussed what you think would be the technological and institutional reforms required for the country. Now we'll discuss what is being done by the government and then understand where we stand. But before we start with the technological and institutional reforms that has happened, we need to understand why do we need to do it, isn't it? So the term, as you can see here, till now we have been studying everything about agriculture, staying in a farmland, almost like cropping, everything inside the farm. So let's now go beyond that. Let's learn about some issues related to agriculture. So let's discuss some challenges associated with it so that we can understand agriculture in a more comprehensive manner, in a wholesome manner. Okay. So now, as a topic here suggests, we need to bring technological and institutional reforms. As you can understand from the heading itself, so we are talking about technological and institutional changes. Now the question arises, why should we bring any changes? Okay. So what is the need of any change? Why is it required? Can anybody suggest why it is required? Why do we think that it should change from what's there in what's the present situation is? Shrushti? Why do we need to bring changes? And especially in this field. Ryan, Lobo?
Ma'am, maybe because the farmers don't get enough profit, and also the crop production is decreasing. Like if the crop production can increase, then you bring in technological reforms to make it increase.
What makes you feel that the production is decreasing? Is the production decreasing?
No, that's my bad. It's not.
The population is increasing,
Yeah, so
and
the
land
demand
use
is more.
Yes.
Demand is more, and the land use is same.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Amogha. But then what is the basic necessity? Why do we need to study this? Is because first and the foremost thing. Why? Because why do you think it is essential for India?
Ma'am, because India is a agricultural country.
Yes.
More than 50% are depending on agriculture.
Right. More than 50% of our population is actually dependent upon agriculture. Like it was 60%, but now the present statistics would tell you that 55% of our population is associated with agriculture. So we need to know about the different reforms that the government is bringing into because we need to, and we also know and remember and have talked about our country being associated with agriculture for a long time. It's an age-old economic activity for us, right? So we aspire growth in it. We want improvement in this sector because this is the oldest sector where we've always worked on. And the majority means 55% is more than half of the people of our country are involved in agriculture. So these are the two basic things why we are talking about why we need technological and institutional reforms. Besides this, like you all have suggested now, there are various other, what we have suggested are challenges that we are facing, and we need to overcome those challenges to bring about an increase in the production. Now, like somebody here talked about we need, because of the population, growing population, we need to feed all of them. So if we need to feed all of them, we need to ensure food security in our country. So the production has to increase. Now the population of India is reaching to 137 crores, which is 17.7% of the total population of the world. India, such a small place in the world, if you see on a map, but then it constitutes 17.7% of the world population. That's a huge number, isn't it? So now if we need to feed more and more people, we need to bring about changes. That's one big challenge that India is facing. And you might be reading in the newspapers about the distress amongst the farmers. Have you not read some distress things related to the farmers on the newspapers?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So what have you read about them?
They commit suicide because they can't pay back the interest.
Correct. So we are listening about farmers actually committing suicide. So all this distress, we need to bring about some changes to actually see that they come out of this distress, this rural and agricultural distress, which is increasing amongst the farmers. So now, though we have so many different irrigation facilities available, but all the farmers are not being able to use it. So the productivity is yet not very high, right? So the standard of living is not increasing. The income of the farmers is not increasing. So they're not well placed even now. So that's a very big challenge which needs to be addressed. And besides all this, there's one more big challenge that the agricultural field is facing is the climatic changes. I'm sure you do understand about the climatic changes which are happening today. Pranav, what are the climatic changes that are happening?
Ma'am, due to global warming, there's an uneven rainfall, and whenever there has to be rainfall, there is no rainfall, and whenever
so distribution is changing, the temperature is changing. So because of climatic variation, it has a direct impact upon the agricultural field because it affects the environment. Because we are agriculture is very closely associated with the climate and environment of a particular region. So since agriculture is affected and 60 or 55% of India's population is associated with it, the economy is going to be affected, right? So it creates a negative impact upon the economy directly. So that's a very big challenge. So these are the many different challenges that India is facing today, and because of which we need to bring about technological and institutional reforms. I hope you're clear why it is required. Everybody? Clear, children?
Yes, ma'am.
So there are two basic reasons for that. One is because more than 55% of our population is associated with it. And the second important factor being, what's the second important factor, children?
Climate change.
Oh, the second important factor is it is an age-old occupation in India, and since we are practicing it for such a long time, we are expecting some improvement in it. And you're talking about climate; those are challenges that we are facing. So, be it suicides, be it farmer suicides, or be it climatic changes, or be it dissatisfaction amongst the income levels coming down for the farmers. All these are challenges that India is facing. So these are the challenges and the needs behind these technological and institutional reforms. Now, as you can see this slide, children, I've classified them into two categories, that is institutional reforms and technological reforms. So Tanvi, the first word is collectivization. So what comes to your mind when you read this term collectivization?
Ma'am, collective farming, like on one land.
What is collective farming according to you, child?
Like they pool in their resources, maybe.
Pool in their resources?
To grow crop.
Anybody
They
else?
share the land and the resources and like all the tools so that they can make more produce.
Amoga, you aren't clear. Be a little louder again.
Now, two or more farmers, they combine all their resources and all their tools so that they can produce more and share the benefit.
Okay. Pranav, what do you have to say about it?
They combine their lands and make like Amoga said, just as Amoga said.
No, but then what Pranav said is more exact than what Amoga said. So here
Collection
it
land.
is, yeah.
Land,
Yeah,
combining land
land.
and working on.
it is basically about land here, collecting the land. So here where multiple farmers bring their holdings or bring their small holdings together. So they work as a joint enterprise. So it is also
Like-
associated with what Amoga is saying, but first is collecting the land together. It's actually grouping of the farmers into one unit so that a farm a farm whereby the farmers can actually come together in a particular area and they would combine the land together and form a single unit. So when a single unit is formed, they can grow one crop which will be more economically viable as compared to they growing in small bits and pieces, right? That's what, as the term indicates, collectivization. It is bringing in the small farms together, and the farmers actually come together and they make it a big piece of land, united, and they grow a particular crop. So that is a change which was being brought about. But how were these changes actually brought about? The government of India made certain reforms. Yeah.
Ma'am, even though they're pooling in the land and growing the crops, how do they divide the benefits?
So when you grow a single crop, you'll have a better harvest. So
Yeah.
based upon that, maybe depending upon the amount of land that they are contributing, they get their remuneration according to it.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
not about, it's about overall thing. It's about the overall production of the land. So when the overall production of the land increases, the individual benefits that they get will also increase.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Right? So it's
Yeah.
that way. So all
Yes.
these actually were brought in by the government of India when they after independence.
Ma'am.
Yeah, just a minute. Yeah, ma'am. Ma'am, I'm taking a class. Can I call you after some time? Okay, children. Where were we?
I had a doubt.
Yeah, Pranav, tell me, what was your doubt?
I
This
didn't
is
have a
Dhruv.
doubt.
Huh?
Ma'am, Dhruv.
Dhruv, tell me.
Ma'am, so basically you're saying that according to the land they give, they get their, how much ever that is, they get profit according to that.
Yeah, but basically, child, we are talking about this in terms of the government making all these reforms to bring in the land together so that the productivity of the land increases. So as and when the productivity of the land increases, so when you earn more profit, naturally the profit will be divided amongst the farmers themselves, right? So each one will get more than what they could get when they were actually farming in those small pieces of land, right?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, Dhruv.
Ma'am,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, tell
ma'am,
me.
but then, ma'am, the government has introduced collectivization, and there's also like right of inheritance. So they both are like it's opposite, I think.
Pranav, we are coming there.
Then
Let me move. Okay. So that you've understood collectivization. So these were the reforms which were brought about by the government post-independence. Okay, these were the land reforms. The second term is consolidation of holdings. Now, what Pranav is talking about, right of inheritance, has brought about the breakdown of the land holdings, or the size of the holdings was reducing day by day, right? So because of this, there was a fragmentation of the land holdings, and which brought about the necessity of consolidating the holdings. Now, what is consolidation of the holdings? Now, land consolidation is a planned readjustment and rearrangement of fragmented land parts and their ownerships. It is usually applied to form a larger and more rational land holding. So land consolidation was basically used to improve the rural infrastructure, and so that development can be of a greater extent. So since the land holding size was reducing, here the ownership of the lands, they were trying to combine those lands. It's close to collectivization, but consolidation is even bringing the lands together over here. Because of the rule of inheritance, because of which was leading to the breakdown of holdings, they were trying to consolidate those lands. It was a planned thing. It's not that we are talking to the farmers nearby. It was planned by the government how it would do that, and it would bring about the consolidation of bringing these smaller holdings together. The third thing that the government did was cooperation. During that time, certain farmers had large amount of land, and the other farmer had very little land. So the government actually came into certain policies where they wanted the farmer who had large amount of land to come in cooperation with the person who had small amount of land. So they were trying to build that relationship between these farmers so that they can cooperate amongst themselves and have a bigger land together where they can produce better. And then there was abolition of zamindari. So during that time, zamindari was practiced. You might have heard about this, that certain people or villagers had lot of lands, lot of villages were owned by them, and the others worked for them. So the government didn't want this to move ahead from one generation, move ahead in time. So they brought in rules like those of the land ceiling acts. So for based on these land ceiling acts, it was based for equal distribution of land. So a person cannot have more than a particular amount of land. So if he had more than the stipulated amount of land, that land would go to government, and the government would then distribute it amongst the landless farmers. So this the Land Ceiling Act was brought about, which in order to avoid the abolition of zamindari. So these were certain institutional reforms which are brought about by the government. Any doubts about this? Yes,
Ma'am, if the government took extra land because if it exceeded a certain limit, so would they pay for the land which they took, or like?
So it was not that they're taking land from the poor.
Yeah, no, for the rich person also, but would they pay him for the land they took, or like it would be like a loss?
No, during that time they were not paying. They were actually, the zamindars were having more than 5-6 villages with them.
Oh, okay.
Okay, they owned villages, lands, lot of lands and villages. So what they used to, it's not that they would make them poor, but then they fixed on a certain amount so that there could be equal distribution of the land amongst people. So the basic idea behind this is so that the others even get certain land so that they can earn a living out of it. So what was happening was, small plot size was hampering the proper farm management. So to improve the condition, the government brought about certain measures for land reforms. And in some states, actually, the land was redistributed so that all of the land owned by a farmer could come on one single plot. Do you understand? So the farmer might be owning small plots in different parts, but then it's not economically viable. So they did a complete redistribution of the land of a particular village, maybe, so that the amount of land that farmer had could be given in one particular region.
Oh, okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Right. So these kinds of reforms were actually successful in some states like Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, but they could not be implemented throughout the country because the farmers did not give a very good response. It was a lukewarm response from the farmers. Yes, somebody was saying something? Clear, children, till here? So these were the institutions. Yeah. Yeah, Ishan?
Ma'am, it was not me.
Not you?
Yeah, not me.
So these were certain institutional reforms which were brought by the government. But because since the response was very lukewarm, they could not implement it to a good extent. So then this moved on. They brought about certain more changes in the 1980s and 1990s, where they had comprehensive land development programs which were initiated along with, including both institutional and technological reforms. And under those reforms, the government initiated a new thing. Now, a farmer could not sustain a natural calamity during that time. If there was a natural calamity which was not in the control of anybody's hands, right? So when you're talking about an earthquake or a flood or a drought or a cyclone or a fire, and the farmer would lose everything that he has, and that would create a lot of distress to him. But nobody had control over it. So that was a big hassle, a hazard. So what the government did was, it started providing crop insurance. against drought, flood, cyclone, fire, disease. So what happens? Now the farmer is safe even such natural calamity comes into being. So this was one institutional reform which was brought about after the 1980s and 90s. And besides these, what happened, what was seen was the farmers, if they had to take loan, the money lenders in the village were exploiting them. They were giving loans, but at very high interest, where the farmer was never being able to repay the entire thing. He was always under debt. So see, trying to face this challenge or overcome this challenge, they tried establishment of Grameen banks, cooperative societies. They provided loans at very low interest. So the farmer was in safe hands now. So they knew that there's something which was regularized by the government, only that much percentage of interest was taken, and that was very low as compared to those money lenders who were taking money from them. So this was one very big step which was taken during that time. And it was an important step in this direction actually. So now besides this, the government actually did some more things, which you can see here. KSS actually stands for Kisan Credit Cards. So they started with the system of Kisan Credit Cards. So now the farmer could take credit, like take money from the banks in order to do something, buy a crop or buy fertilizers. So this was introduced. And they introduced personal accident insurance schemes for the farmers, which was of great, this is PAIS. This stands for Personal Accident Insurance Scheme, which was initiated by the government. And one more very important thing which was introduced by the government during this time was a fixed amount or remuneration which the government fixed for all different kinds of important crops. So what happened was, when there was a good crop, so with this large production of crop, so what happens when they sell in the market, the prices would drop. And if there was any problem, then there would be less crop, the prices would rise. But then the farmer was not in a very stable state because of this. So in order to overcome this uncertainty, the government started something called as MSP.
Minimum support price.
Minimum support price.
It is
minimum support price.
Yes, it's minimum support price. So this was a remuneration which was fixed by the government. That's a procurement price for important crops, so that they're not exploited by any speculators or middlemen. You're tired, yawning. No, fine. Okay. So it's actually the minimum support price which was fixed, so that it stabilizes the position of the farmer. Okay, so these were the major steps, institutional reforms which were made during that time to improve the agricultural practices or position of agriculture in the economy of our country. Any problem in anything in the institutional reforms, children?
No, ma'am.
Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
The consolidation of holdings, I didn't really understand it.
Child, the consolidation of holdings is basically when there was the land was broken down, right? Because of the rule of inheritance.
Yeah.
So it was broken down into smaller fragments.
Mm-hmm.
So the government actually planned a rearrangement and readjustment of these fragmented parts. So, so it was a planned thing, and they were brought together one particular place so they can use it better.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
So now coming to the technological reforms. So amongst the technological reforms, now technology was used for improvement of agriculture. So how was this done? So they had these various, if you have ever seen or heard about their Doordarshan as a channel, you might have seen and heard about programs such as Krishi Darshan and all that. So there were specific channels which were actually delegated for the improvement of agriculture, where they would talk about different kinds of seeds. They would talk about manure, how much, what kind of soil is suitable for growing what, how they can send soil samples where they can find out which crop can grow which place. what are the fertilizers available, what kind of insecticides and pesticides they should use. And then they used all these facilities in order to, they brought about technology in agriculture in this way. Okay, so they had these weather bulletins to warn the farmers that there could be a cyclone or there could be the monsoons may come late, so that the farmer is prepared. So there were various different kinds of agricultural programs for the farmers on radio as well as television. So this made the farmer more aware, more informed about what he is going to face and how he can improvise and improve on what he already has. So these were the technological reforms. Besides that, there was a lot of subsidy given to the farmer on agricultural products. Here, agricultural products means the technology that will be used. Ryan, what would be the technology that can be used on a farmland? Instead of a plow, what can a farmer use?
They can use like plowing machines or oxes to plow the land.
Yes, he can use plowing machines, he can use tractors, he can use harvesters. So if a farmer wanted to buy or improvise technology into farming, they would give subsidy. The government would give subsidy, would give them those machinery at lower costs. So that was a technological reform which was brought about. And besides these, green revolution and white revolution was also brought about. I'm sure you all know what green revolution was. Shrishti, what was green revolution? Can't hear me? Sunidhi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Yeah, tell me what's green revolution then?
Ma'am, it's basically the introduction of technology.
What? Technology for what, child? Ishan?
For like using modern techniques.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Modern techniques like what? Ishan, green revolution is associated.
Ma'am, green revolution is like using HYV seeds and fertilizers for like better crop production.
Correct. So green revolution was actually introduced in 1960s, where we used introduction of high yielding variety of seeds and to improve the overall production. And then chemical fertilizers, pesticides, all of these were introduced. Okay. So this was the green revolution. And the white revolution, as the term itself tells you, what's white revolution? White revolution, Maurya? Agnes, what's white revolution?
When poultry was
milk produce.
Poultry produces milk?
Dairy.
Agnes?
Dairy.
No, egg.
I'm talking about white revolution.
Ma'am, wherever we said that, not Maggie.
Ma'am, it's milk, ma'am, the revolution of milk.
Yes. So the increase in the production of milk was what was all this about. That is also known as Operation Flood. So we're improving the milk production in the country. And so that how did they do this? By bringing about hybrid varieties of cattle so that they can increase the production of milk. So that was what was introduced during this time, so that the production of milk was increased. These were the revolutions which were brought about during that time. These are the technological and institutional reforms which are brought about so that it can improve the status of our country, economic status. Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Dear children?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am.
Tell me, Aniket.
Ma'am, I said yes, ma'am.
You said yes, ma'am. So these are the technological and institutional reforms which are brought about in our country during that time. Now, I want that you should see this picture. Anybody who can identify this man?
Vinoba Bhave.
Yes, who's that? Pranav, great, very good. He is Vinoba Bhave. Anything more that you know about Vinoba Bhave, Pranav?
No, ma'am, he was just a freedom fighter. I don't know about that.
He was just a freedom fighter?
He was a freedom fighter. I don't know more about him.
Yeah, that's better. But he was a freedom fighter. How many of you all have ever heard of him?
मैंने कुछ नहीं किया.
Pardon? Ishan, you had to say something, or Samat?
No, that was Samat.
Okay. So this is Vinoba Bhave. Now I'm going to tell you a small story associated with him. So this is even associated with the land reform actually. Vinoba Bhave was actually considered to be the spiritual heir to Mahatma Gandhi. What does spiritual heir mean now? Who can tell me what I mean by spiritual heir?
Maybe supporter.
Who's this supporter? Aniket. Yeah, it's in a broader perspective, a supporter. He was actually a person who took forward Gandhiji's ideologies, his spiritual ideas forward. It's actually Mahatma Gandhi declared Vinoba Bhave as a spiritual heir. Okay, so he participated in various different satyagrahas and all over the country and propagated what Gandhiji thought, his thoughts, because he believed in them. And he was one of a person who believed in Gandhiji's concept of Gram Swarajya. So as the term itself signifies, Gram Swarajya. Gram here does not mean pulses. Okay, Gram here means village in Hindi. So Gram Swarajya. So what Gandhiji believed was that a nation can be strong if the smallest of the unit starts becoming stronger. So right, he wanted the villages to become self-independent. He wanted the villages to be empowered. So he thought if the villages could be empowered, then the country would be empowered, right? So he didn't believe that the center is strong, so the country is strong. No, he thought that the smallest of the units, we were made of villages. So if the village could become self-dependent, independent, then we could be a strong country. So this is what actually Vinoba Bhave propagated. So he was talking about this. He actually took about lots of padyatras. Okay, so he went on this padyatra, spreading this message almost all over the country, right? So once what happened when he was talking about this to the villagers, and he was telling them that if you want to develop your country, you need to empower yourself, so that you can contribute to the development of the country. So this was something that he was telling the people of the village. And then what happened? A few of the villagers stood up and they said that we don't have a piece of land to grow crop. Now, how do you think that we would contribute towards the development of the country if we cannot feed our own mouths? So he said that the villagers then demanded for some help. They asked that, they appealed for procurement of some land. See, they said, help us to get some land, then we'll have a source of employment which will enable us to contribute towards the progress and the development of the country, like what you are asking for. But we cannot do that if we do not have land. But then Vinoba Bhave had no land to give them, right? So then Vinoba Bhave, he made a suggestion to these people. He assured them that he will be talking to the government of India regarding the provision of land for them, but provided they undertake cooperative farming. If they all come together and they do farming, then he'll talk to the government so that they'll get land, right? So when this discussion was happening in the meeting or wherever he was trying to like enlighten the people of the villages, there was one person whose name was Sri Ramachandra Reddy. He stood up, and what he did was he offered 80 acres of land to be distributed amongst 80 landless villages. 80 acres of land is a big amount. So he donated it amongst the villages. So this was a new concept from here which arose, that was Bhudanam. So Bhumi, that from Bhu is Bhumi, Dan is donation. That's where this concept of Bhudan started. Okay. So following this, many other people, many other villagers who had lots of land started donating land. As this idea spread, more and more zamindars who had a lot of land, they also came forward and they started giving land. And there were few villagers zamindars who had lots of villages, not 1, 2, 3, they had many villages. So they started donating villages. Donation of villages is what was known as Gram Dan. Gram is village and Dan is donating. So they started donating villages. But remember here children, though some zamindars actually offered to distribute their villages to the landless, however, many landowners chose to provide only a small part to the poor farmers. They did provide, but due to certain fear. What was the fear? The fear was the Land Ceiling Act. Now that the Land Ceiling Act was introduced by the government, these people knew that the government would take away the land beyond a certain limit. So they thought that why not distribute the land amongst the landless so that they can at least earn the goodwill of the farmers, right? So they'll have some respect in the place that they are. They'll maintain the dignity. They'll maintain the position. They'll maintain the social legitimacy in the village, right? So because of that fear, some started donating.